Hey, it's Darcy here from the NZ Everyday Investor. In this episode, I'm going to cover something a little bit different. Investing for your long-term goals, it's an important thing to do, but it's not just about what to invest in, which is something that we cover extensively on this show already, but it's also about making a smart money move that has nothing to do with what you invest in and far more to do with your mindset. So today we're having a discussion around some of the preconditions, some of the mental preconditions required before you go too much further with your next investment decision. 2020 has been an awful year for many of us, and when things don't go according to plan, perhaps you lose your job, your business, or your health, it's understandable to react by shrinking back. Yet many successful investors actually take ground during uncomfortable seasons. So in today's episode, I'm talking with Fricky, Pao, and Steve from High Performance Coaching and Training. When's it appropriate to be resilient? When's it time to simply push reset? And when's it okay to let something die and just start again? I hope you get something out of this episode and you enjoy it. And if you do, please remember to give us a big thumbs up, leave a positive comment, and hit subscribe. Let's get started. Welcome everybody to the NZ Everyday Investor. I'm your host, Darcy Ongaro. And today we're going to be covering off something a little bit different, something a bit exciting. I think it's a bit exciting. And I'm in the studio with three other people, Pao, Fricky, Steve from High Performance. You're basically high performance coaches. And so I want you to unlock what that means. Maybe Fricky, if you just start, tell us a little bit about what you guys do.
Yeah, so for the last 23 years, we've actually helped businesses increase profit and reduce costs. So we work with a company for extended period and just focus on what are the key things they would like to change within their business, and then help them to change that.
Perfect. And this is something that I've been wanting to tackle this for a few different reasons for a little bit of time, even before this pandemic came and slapped us on the face and shut us all down and interrupted our lives. I wanted to make sure that we don't just focus on investing. We don't just focus on the tools that we're using to try to build wealth. Every now and then you need to step back and think about, well, what are some of the things going on in your mind before you actually engage with things? Yeah. And so this might be one of a few different sessions that we do discussing this, but because of your backgrounds, you're working with businesses, you're trying to help them to get to the next level, to unlock even just a small gain. But at the same time, you're probably acknowledging sometimes that every now and then life doesn't go according to plan.
Yep.
Business failures, redundancies. In light of current events, is that something that you guys have seen a lot of recently?
Yeah, we definitely see that a lot, and a lot of people haven't planned for the situation. So things were going really well, and it makes me think about the story of this guy selling hot dogs in America, and he was doing extremely well selling hot dogs, but because he couldn't read and he had a problem with his hearing, he didn't listen to the radio. So he never read the papers and never listened to the radio. And then after a while, his son came back from university and he wants to get involved with his dad's business. And when he met with his dad, he said, "Dad, but do you know that there's a recession currently going on? Why are you expanding?" And the dad listened to his son and he said, my son got a qualification from university. He knows what's happening in the world. And he immediately started not having enough food. So he stopped buying hot dogs. He stopped buying the buns. And then suddenly when clients came to his shop, he didn't have anything. And within a couple of days, he went back to his son and said, "Son, you were right. There is a recession." And we see that sometimes that the mindset is really important in these times. If you expect negative things, those negative things happen. But if you look out for the opportunities, there's a lot of opportunities in difficult times. Even in the Great Depression, that was a time in the history of the world that the most people became millionaires. Reset your goals and restart your business at the end of the day.
It's really important. I remember when I was younger, I used to work for somebody at a fruit and veggie shop, and that was I remember him saying that, don't just put out on the shelves what you think might sell today. It needs to be full. You need to actually be expecting something, because if you don't expect it, you're not going to get it.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's kind of like that with your hot dog story, right?
Yeah.
I feel like a hot dog now, though.
Yeah.
Darn it. So, the beginning of 2020 started out a certain way, and we probably could map our year ahead, maybe thinking of our our winter trip and what we were going to do and buy this year, and then slap with maybe a 30% reduction in pay or 20%. Maybe some of us have lost our jobs. And I guess the natural tendency is to say, hey, there's a recession, let's pull back. But what you're saying, though, is that it's kind of the opposite, right? You should be taking ground when others are running for the hills.
Yeah. And pivot's the trendy term, but it is a positive mindset to say there's opportunity here. It's either completely different railroad or it's a tangent, it's on the sort of path that I'm on, but it's a tweak.
Yeah.
And so for us working with a lot of our clients, it's actually helping look for that. Sometimes if you're paralyzed by fear, the creative mind is restricted. And so it's just saying, okay, how can I stay optimistic? How can I stay positive? How can I stay in that creative mindset to look for potential, look for opportunity, and then actually have the energy to embark on that?
And for a lot of our self-employed listeners or independent earners, that word creativity is actually one of the core ingredients that sets them apart from everyone else, because it's a lot easier to be a creative and to come up with new business ideas when you're self-employed than it is working for the man. Yeah.
And we, as human beings, we often need outside voices in our world. And again, that's often where we see ourselves coming in as coaches. We're often providing accountability, but sometimes we can get caught in our own negative thinking. We can get caught in a negative spiral, and just having somebody else to say, well, hold on, let's bring context, let's bring perspective. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Yeah. And I think as a human nature, we just need often to be in community, to be in relationship, and have those different people who can either shake us or just bring out a different angle to
That's a good point.
A same problem.
Because I think, I'm just thinking with, you might have some ambitious goals of buying a property or getting further into investing. And then this happens. And now it's not just, hey, we're taking ground. We're going to shrink back now because now we're just trying to survive. And if you're the type of person that does that on your own insular little world, and you don't relate or invite people into your world, it's going to be a lot harder for you to crawl out of that hole, isn't that?
Yeah, correct.
Definitely.
Correct.
Yeah.
I love some of the stories from history, and one of those, Darcy, we were talking earlier around, there's this town in the southern states of America called Enterprise, Alabama, and they've got a statue in the middle of their town. At the top of the statue is this weevil. It's called a boll weevil. Why would they be celebrating this pestilence, this bug, this thing that's kind of destroys crops? And it's kind of, just imagine in our context, a statue in the middle of Wanganui with an image of a COVID molecule on the top of it. What? That seems odd. And the reason this town in Alabama celebrated this was this weevil came across from Mexico, came north, and it decimated the cotton crops. And so some of the farmers pivoted. So they looked with optimism, saying, okay, what else could we do? And a bunch of them moved to peanut farming at the time. And within one season, they had eliminated a lot of their debt that they previously had. They were earning 3 times as much as they were before. And so the town of Enterprise it was in this season, due to this so-called catastrophe, that we ended up far better than we ever were before. And so I think the statue went up in 1919 to commemorate that event. Yeah. So financially, they said, well, we don't have to be underneath this. We have options.
Gotcha.
And so the peanut farming, and so that was a sort of a branch into diversification. Yeah. So they weren't solely invested in one area, they diversified. And then some of the research that came out since then was some of the other social benefits. So maybe some of the kids who would have been in the cotton farms ended up more time in school. So there's more kids being educated. And we've had our boll weevil incidents now. Okay, what else could we be doing? What's our peanut farming that we can do? Some of these necessities, the mother of invention mindsets, it's sort of pushing those buttons, saying, okay, let's embrace that.
I think maybe to a certain extent we haven't really maybe even allowed ourselves to suffer enough, or we haven't really allowed ourselves to go through that desperate phase enough sometimes, where you do start to think creatively and you do start to try to solve this problem, right?
Yeah. And it's, you don't want to pretend, like if you've been farming cotton for a long time, it is painful to have your crop decimated. And so it's not this optimism is not blind.
Yeah.
You've got to be real.
That's right.
Yeah.
You can't wear a peanut.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
Peanut on your head. Yeah. So
Yeah.
optimism's not pretending,
Yeah.
but it is about the way forward and,
Correct.
and hope.
And that's the word hope, right? We don't really use that word hope too much. It's almost like
Yeah.
we've forgotten what it is. But when you've just been kicked in the guts big time and you've lost your business and you see no other way out because your whole business was all about cotton,
Right.
like that's got to feel, you got to feel sick, right?
Yes, correct.
And to actually even say the word hope around people that are going through that
Yeah.
is tough.
Yes.
Because it's and sometimes they might not receive it very well. But
Yeah.
how do you guys find that when you're dealing with businesses that are just genuinely just decimated? If you do deal many with businesses like that,
Yeah.
how do you approach it, like with that mindset of hope? How do you actually tackle that?
I think the key what we do with and going through COVID, we've seen that with a lot of businesses where they really in a difficult situation, and it's really assessing exactly where they are. And then going back to previous successes, you see, because it's really important to always believe you can achieve that better result again.
Yeah.
And by assessing where they are, we can then replan and say, okay, you didn't achieve that goals that you wanted to achieve, but let's look at ways of getting out of this. And the important thing, as Steve mentioned, people are really creative. We don't use our creativity that much, and you have that in abundance. So if you get in a situation like that and you start thinking strategically, and you've got some other people that can give you inputs, that helps a lot. One real estate business owner that we work with in the recession, and he decided where all the real estate people say we're just going to do what we have to do, so we're not going to expand. He went ahead and expand. And today he owns over 17 franchises. He's one of the most successful people in real estate. And it was just because he saw that opportunity and then went ahead and say, this is an opportunity to grow. During the recession also, they did a study and they look at all the money available in the world. And they say, if we take all this money and redistribute it to every living being, everyone would have $1 million. So it just shows you there's always abundance, but it comes back to that attitude, looking at how we can overcome this.
Right. You can actually thrive. You can actually do well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Winston Churchill say, success is moving from one failure to another without losing enthusiasm.
Nice.
And
it's kind of morbid though, isn't it? You wouldn't say that he had a lot of hope with that phrase, but I know what he's trying to get across, but yeah.
Yeah. He also said, he had another quote that I really like. He said, if you're going through hell, keep on going. Yeah. And I think that's, as Steve mentioned, a lot of people go and sit down and say, I'm in this crisis. I can't get out of it.
Correct.
Where if you look at what can I do to get out of it,
correct,
and talk to other people, that's really important. Talk with the friends that you've got. Talk to the people that can assist you to take your business back to where it should be.
And we're talking about, obviously, in the context of business, but this could also be analogous to somebody who's an employee and their career effectively is their business. It's their asset that they're trying to build.
Yes.
And I guess another layer to this is of building wealth. When you get a knockback, do you just sell everything, capitulate, right, buy high again, sell low? But that is kind of like the natural knee-jerk reaction that we always have, is that when we're going through hell, we actually stop and we soak in it, and when we kind of just burn. But we need to keep going, right? And it's easy to say. It's probably really hard to do when you're in it. And I know personally and professionally gone through more than a few tough valleys, right?
Yeah.
And when you're in there, being connected, like what you're saying, Steve, having people around you, being connected to something that's not just you, inside of you, an anchor that you can go towards.
Yeah.
And for some people, that's a broader mission statement, right? It's, hey, this is what we believe, and this is what we're trying to achieve. Maybe from an investment point of view, it's these are the objectives that we're trying to achieve. Just because the environment has changed doesn't mean that we still don't want those things. Right. But a lot of people kind of go through the whole investing thing, especially, is just, hey, we're just playing with some tools. We're investing. We're having a crack at this. But there's no objective. There's no longer term strategy. And strategy is great because you have to get to there, but it's really important so that you can go through these storms.
Yes.
Yeah.
How important is it, you think, to have this strategy right, or to have a longer term goal when it comes to being in business or developing your career?
Yeah, I think it's absolute critical. You have to set those goals. You have to have your short and medium and long-term goals. If you look at anybody that's been really successful in the world, they all went through difficult times. If you look at Henry Ford, I think he was 3 times bankrupt. Now, and look where he is today. Kentucky Fried Chicken, really good example, where Colonel Sanders went to 1,009 people to restaurants to try and sell his recipe. And all of them said, this won't work.
Yeah.
But he kept on going. Dyson, another good example, where he spent 15 years of his savings to develop a prototype of the hand dryer. And he built 5,026 and failed. He lost his 15 years of investment. He lost all of that money that he built up. But the next one that he built was successful. And today, I think he's over $4 billion worth. So
Amazing.
once again, even the most successful people go through those times.
Correct.
But getting back to setting goals, setting targets, that's the key. Because then you can see, am I achieving what I should be achieving?
Correct.
How can I change?
I think, Darcy, when you're talking about those really long-term ones, or even your purpose, that gives you very much a horizon view. And so when you've got the short-term ups and downs, that longer-term strategy, long-term goals, long-term purpose gives you a bigger perspective.
Correct.
Short-term bumps, you can weather because you're looking further out.
Correct.
So we're talking about reset, talking about restart and the mindsets about that. There's some of the research around grit. There's Angela Duckworth's book on grit. And so that kind of being a real predictor to long-term success, the stickability, being able to keep going in the face of turbulence and turbulent times is actually a massive predictor. And so this research that was sponsored by MB said that these leaders that succeeded through the post-Christchurch earthquake characterize some of these behaviors. Number one was real high and quality levels of communication with their staff, communication with their suppliers, all their stakeholders. They went to another level of effective communication. The other things that they did was really go to another level of valuing their employees. So as they work through tragedy, difficulty, again in our context, post-COVID, the difficulties how are you going? There's another layer of empathy and valuing employees and their wider family context.
Right.
So those leaders demonstrated that. They went to another level of learning. So let's try this. Let's have a go. Again, back to the creative thing.
Yeah.
So these leaders brought to their organizations a learning style, a learning thinking. It's okay to try and fail. It's okay to have a go at something. Let's do something new. And that's where, again, you're pivoting, you're going into new markets, you're trying new product lines. And probably a final thing to mention on that study was they embraced collaboration like never before. Okay, we're all in a difficult circumstances. All the buildings have fallen down around us, or we're all on COVID. Let's collaborate.
What are the ideas to solve this problem?
So there's cross silo, within departments. So you think about a big corporate. So how do we collaborate better than ever before? But then also externally, how do we collaborate up our supply chain down to our customers? And so that again stimulates fresh thinking.
The silos seem to grow when things are going well. But when things aren't, that's when you need to kind of break down everything and just get through. But going back to what you were saying before, Fricky, I like that story with the Dyson one, because he did an electric car recently, which he did shut it down. I just wanted to draw on that because I think so much of this, we can kind of think that it's also just about keep on going, keep on knocking on that door until it finally opens and just be pig-headed and don't give up. But sometimes we just need to let things die as well, right?
Yeah, very true.
How much death, it's a pretty strong word, but how much death is absolutely, totally called for and appropriate when it comes to looking at your business, looking at your career? When is it actually okay? And how do you decide if it's okay to let something die and go away?
Yeah. About 23 years ago, I was in America and I met a really successful business person. And I met this person and he had 40 businesses in 70 countries around the world. So really successful. And he said to me, Fricky, I started 110 businesses, but I had to let go of some of those businesses that weren't achieving the results that I would like them to achieve. So I think it's really difficult to let go of something and to say I need to stop that. But I think if you know exactly you know where you're going in life. You also know what are my goals, what are things that I need to achieve, and you realize this is not working for me. There's always alternatives. Okay, there's different ways to get from point A to point B. And it's important to do those evaluations. I think one of the keys is you have to know yourself really well.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
So go back and identify with yourself what are things that's really important for you in life.
Yeah.
And what is your purpose? And I think going back to what Steve mentioned earlier, if you've got a purpose in life, then everything should be aligned with that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to step away from a career, or you have to step away from the direction that you were going to find something else, find something better.
I think another dimension of this is to recognize seasons. We have winter seasons, we have summer seasons, those changes of seasons. And sometimes you get stale in a career.
Yeah.
You know, it's time to leave that corporate role and start your own coaching business.
That's right. Probably the most powerful part of the conversation that I have with somebody usually comes down to some sort of question kind of like that. I do it a little bit differently, but it's the same sort of thing. You know, if you were at a certain stage in your life where you didn't have to work anymore for income, but you still wanted to do something, what would that be?
Good.
Like, what are you really into?
Yeah.
That's, I guess, getting to the purpose, the why.
Yes.
Because I can honestly say, like 99% of people that I ask that question to, they haven't got an answer for that. But they can get an answer.
Yes.
It is possible to actually go there. And often we think, well, this is my money world. I don't bring that stuff into my money world. But no, the money is just a symptom of what's going on somewhere else. That's just a reflection. So if you start with the end in mind, start with who you are, what makes you special, what drives you, it's so much easier, especially when you have these shocks, isn't it?
Yes.
To actually say, well, let's maybe go take a new direction here, right? And it might be easier to let things die too, right?
Yeah. I'll give you an example, Darcy. We're working with a lady that were a top producer in the real estate industry, and then went through a really difficult time, lost a partner, a lot of negative things happened in her life. And she was really at a point where she was thinking of ending her life. And we started talking with her at that stage. And one of the key things that we did is we said, let's just sit down and write down all the successes in your life. And the first thing that she wrote down is my son. That was her biggest success, to have a son, and how he grew up now, and what he's achieving at this stage. And sometimes we see in a situation like this is actually to go back and say, let me write down all the previous successes that I had in my life, and even the small little ones, because that is who you are. You see, sometimes people look at a financial, what's happening financially with them, and they think, I'm not worth it. But your worth is not determined by what you own. Your worth is who you are as a person.
That's a good
So
point.
it's really important to always know what you're worth. You know, there's other story about this dad that was dying, and he gave his son a watch, a 200-year-old watch, and he said, "Son, take this to a jewelry store and see what it's worth." So the son went to the jewelry store. He came back. He said, "Dad, they say it's worth $200." And he said, "Okay, take it to the pawn shop and see what the pawn shop say." So he went to the pawn shop, and he came back and he said, "Dad, they say it's only worth $10. And then he said, "Okay, take it to the museum." And he took it to the museum, and the son came back and said, "Dad, they told me that it's worth 500,000. And he said, "Son, that just shows you have to go to where people appreciate who you are." So the same watch got different values for different people. And it's always important to remember that you as a person still have that value. So we have, and the only way that you can know that is if you look at yourself, do a lot of evaluations, self-evaluations. That's part of what we do with clients, is we actually do help them to do evaluations, self-evaluations.
It's so important, isn't it? Like, you might have lost your job, right?
Yes.
And you're trying to, I guess, restart your career that was interrupted, and you're going to talk to other businesses out there who have just let go people just like you.
Yeah.
And so you're going to get this picture pretty soon that you have no value.
Yeah.
But really, you're dealing with the pawn shop, right? Not the museum.
That's right. Yeah, that's the key. Yeah.
This, we've probably heard of this term, intergenerational wealth. And I haven't really gone there too much on this show, but I think I know for myself personally and for a lot of the clients that I'm working with, I'm really, really hot on this idea that what it is that you're trying to build today isn't just for you today. And I'm not talking about building a bunch of wealth and just passing on to your kids. I think there's something more to it, right? I think for some of us, investing and growing wealth is part of a broader, deeper purpose that we've got to make an impact that goes beyond ourselves and lasts more than just a generation, specifically a generation of our family.
Yeah.
So I know this is a bit of a big one, but does anybody want to just talk to that a little bit and in terms of purpose and why we do what we do?
Yeah, we're getting a few big ones from you.
Yeah, man.
Today, so we'll
I've
do
had
this
2
one
cups
too.
of tea this morning, so I'm feeling pretty spicy.
Yeah, and just back to this, knowing your why, knowing your purpose, and being clear on that, and so that affects what you do every day, where you're going to spend all your time and energy, but then also your investing. So your finance, your net worth aspect, and so being clear on it from a legacy perspective at the end of my time. So again, goals, objectives. What is the legacy I want to leave? And that might be setting up your children with houses. That there might be something like that. But I think there's also opportunity beyond that, wider than that. So what is my community impact? What's my charitable impact? What does it look like to have a fund that could be used for other charities, fund other charities, those in need, etc. And so again, having that long-term perspective in light of the current now, again, I think allows you to ride through that. Okay, we've taken a big hit now, but again, I'm still shooting for that and drawing energy from that purpose as to getting up and going again, getting up and going slightly differently, I think sustains you in the long term. So I think these principles endure, whether it's goal setting for financially, goal setting personally, goal setting for your family, but having it all kind of born out or tied to that purpose piece. I think so.
That's good. And how, and maybe Pao, you could kind of jump in here as well if you feel like it. But how important is it, do you think, to kind of have a partner or have a team member that is actually on the same page here? Not just because, hey, we're going through a tough time and we might need to let things die and let things live and pivot and all that sort of stuff. But how important is it, do you think, to talk to your partner about what they're going through and not just the failure and helping them through that, but to get through it? Like, do you have anything to say about that?
I think what we've seen, Darcy, lots of business owner, actually, they're really lonely. What I seen. Some of them, they can't really talk with their wife or their husband, which is that's actually wrong, So you in the business, you actually in the same boat. So what we've seen, we have one client, she been in business for a long time and she work on weekend also. And then when we train her, and she said, now her kid doesn't want to do anything with her on weekend because when they're young, mom never there. So now when they're teenager, they do their own thing, their friend. And then she invite us and then to her house. So then we do the family. I think we do the goal setting.
So we did a dream and goal setting with the whole family.
That's cool.
Whole family. And her daughter, I think 9 years old.
9, yeah.
She's really clever. She said, and we asked her what is your dream and go, I want to learn a lot of language. I want to learn Japanese, French, or her goal, and I can't remember. And then she said, and another goal is, I want to have a better relationship with my older sister. And the mom look at her and everybody look at her like, wow, that's a little girl dream. But the mom and the dad, they try to put her into a private school and want to, but sometimes little girl, that the dream is just to have relationship in the family.
Yeah.
So with what we've seen, it's sometimes you have to share that in the family. It's really important.
Yeah, probably weren't thinking that was going to be the outcome, but that's what came out of it. And that actually, and I'm going to use the word wealth here, that actually created wealth. Right? Because we are often thinking about it as money. But really, you just unlocked something that created, like enriched their lives some way. And that's kind of what it's all about. And now you've got family working together for a common goal. It's pretty cool.
I can't tell you how many times when we train somebody and then we have to go to to do the goal setting, the whole family.
Yeah, get
Because
the partner
when they come
involved.
to training and then they said, oh, I didn't talk with my wife for 3 days. She doesn't like me, what I did, blah, 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 blah. And then what we said sometime, and then we just say, okay, next training session, just catch up for coffee with you and your wife too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we let them do social style, and then we let them see why your wife react that way, why your husband react that way, because you guys different social style, so you have to adapt according to that person's social style. So if your wife expressive, then you know she need attention, she need recognition, and you probably can explain that more. If the husband is analyst, that's why they act that way. Or even they support her, so they don't like conflict or something like that. So
so it's really important to understand, if you look at social styles and how people are different. But once you know what the social style is, then you can adapt from that. Like if you're dealing with expressives, they usually make quick decision on limited information. But if I'm dealing with an analyst, they need a lot of information. The analysts like to think things through before they make a decision. So if you're dealing with a client and the client is an analyst and you keep on pushing them, they feel uncomfortable because they're not ready to make a decision.
Actually, do you mind just explaining that? I'm going to guess there's probably 4 different styles here, right?
Yes.
You want to just break that down for me and just explain the different 4 main types of personality types?
Yeah, so we've got the amiable and expressive, and we've got analyst and driver. So if you look at your amiable and expressive, they are focused on people, where the analyst and driver are more task orientated. So they would focus more on tasks. Your supporter and expressive would be open with the emotions, so they would demonstrate the emotions. Where the analyst and driver keep it more to themselves. So whenever you're dealing with those people, it's important to keep that in mind. Then on the other side, if you look at expressive and driver, they like to be in control. And your analyst and supporter or amiable don't like to be in control. So it's really difficult for them on average to make decisions, where your expressive and driver can make quick, fast decisions. But it's important to look at the different styles, and there's no perfect style. We all have a combination of the styles. But once you start to understand each other better, then you can treat people according to those styles. I'll give you an example. My wife is expressive. I'm amiable, and Steve is an analyst. And because of that, we can use that to our advantage when we deal with customers.
That's right. And you do have to be kind of, I guess, sensitive to that when you're dealing with somebody, right? Like if you're sitting in front of a couple and you knew that one was heavy on the analysis side and the other one was a quick fire decision maker, you know that there's going to be some tension there. It's not bad. One person isn't right, one person isn't wrong, but you just need to understand that the truth of the matter, or where the solution will be in a working relationship, and you got to get them talking, right?
That's right.
Quite often when I'm dealing with people, it's the exact same thing. And often it'll be one person who's driving it, at least initially. But if you can, again, have them in the same room, there's a certain sort of magic that happens. They've got the answer.
That's right. Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. How receptive, how, I guess, open and willing are small business owners or small businesses or medium-sized businesses for that matter in engaging with you guys at the moment? Are they even more keen than ever to actually get things right?
What we've seen, and I saw the same with the previous recession. Before that, people were saying, "Can you help me to increase my profit by 10%?" And now they're in a situation that they would say to us, "Can you help us survive?" So the motivation has changed completely. So people are much more open right now to actually engage with us. And also, if you look back in the history, the companies that really had great results from the previous recession were the ones that upskilled. So this is a really good time to actually upskill.
It's weird, but like if anyone's listening who's actually been in business, you'll know that sometimes it's just the right thing that's said to you at the right time, or the right activity, or the right season, or whatever it was. But sometimes it's just one little thing, and that can have a huge impact and turnover. And I think right now I'm talking to some people I know that are going through some really tough times, and they're trying to figure out how they can survive, right? And they're not in thriving mode, they're in surviving mode. And I know some people might reach out to you guys as well, and they want to figure out how do we get through this. But really, you might actually fail in terms of that metric, but succeed on something far more important, which is helping them to do better. Not just survive, but hey, let's actually pivot over and do well.
Yes.
But that's the immediate impact, I think, with some of us, is that we go to survival mode, cost cutting, shrink back, survive, right?
Yeah.
But really what I'm hearing here is that this is actually a fantastic season that we're in.
Yeah.
If you can, to take ground.
Yeah.
Be fearful when others are greedy, be greedy when others are fearful, to quote Warren Buffett.
Right.
This is the time, right?
Yes.
Would you agree with that? Like this is an interesting season that we're in, clearly.
Mm.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's really important, with the previous recession, I worked with one lady that had a business, and when she paid me, she said to me, "This is my bread and butter money. If this doesn't work, I'm in big trouble." 3 months later, she had a 70% growth against the competition. So they had a 40% drop. She had a 30% increase. And the funny thing is, they were selling ice creams in the middle of the winter.
Oh, literally.
So,
Recession.
in the recession. So how do you increase that? And the key was that engagement of a staff, first of all, and changing the way that they were thinking. So instead of just looking, how can we survive? What are ways for us to expand our business? And a lot of times we've seen, as you mentioned earlier, Darcy, that people actually know exactly what to do. But when they engage with us, we just help them with that accountability. So suddenly they've got someone that meet with them every week, and we talk about their business. Sometimes it's just fine-tuning what they're doing. Sometimes they just don't see that little thing that's keeping them from achieving greatness.
Yeah.
And we can help them with that.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, I think I've had conversations with people along the way as well. And again, it's back to that, what's in your heart to do. So some of them, if I think about the trades or a builder, having 20 or 50 people reporting to them is just not them. So success is defined differently for different people. So working with a guy at the moment, for him, it might be five people on his team represents what he can handle and represents that balance of business success as well as personal success. So just understanding the different types of businesses, the different types of industries, and the different types of owners, and what does success represent for them, and then actually targeting that.
Yeah, like no matter where you're at, what industry you're in, or even if it's career, right? Like it just invites somebody into your world, because you're not going to necessarily, like, you might have the answer, but you might not see it, right? The difference here, I guess, with you guys is that you sometimes you'll come complete with a skill set that business, small business, medium-sized business, they don't actually have that skill set, and they don't want to go out and hire somebody. So it's probably a lot more efficient for them to get you in for a season to help the organization turn around. Do you do a lot of stuff like that, where you're kind of working with them for a predetermined block of time to perform that function?
Yeah. And there's limits to our ability too. So we recognize where we fit and where others fit. So coaching through organizations, we might say, in this situation, you need to bring in this specialist here. And this person would help here. So if that's sort of digital marketing specialist, we reckon you could really do with that in this circumstance. So it's not trying to be all things to all men. We recognize we've got a place.
Correct.
And that business coach is a very important voice. But there are technical skills along the way that people need to bring in.
Correct.
And again, you can have two different businesses that are in the same industry, two different owners who have different strengths. And we would recommend different things for them.
Of course,
because we're playing to their strengths.
Correct.
And what they would need to buy in to support them.
Often it's kind of like, what are the tips and tricks? What's the book that I can read that will help me to get through this and to succeed? But really, the author of that book is speaking to a certain type of person, which you may or may not be. And that's probably why some people love certain books, and some people just don't get it. They just don't say it. But that's it, right? Like, it's got to be, you need to know what your skill set is for that business, for the season that they're in. And it's only part of the solution, but it's not the entire solution. But on that topic of books, do you have any recommendations for people that might be listening in terms of what books they should be reading at the moment?
It's funny you mentioned books, Darcy, because I'm actually releasing a book in a couple of months.
Oh, look at that. I didn't know that. This isn't a plug for a book, but you just happened to bring it along.
Right. So I'm in the final drafts of that. It's the book title is What on Earth Are You Working For?
Nice.
And so we've got a subtitle about discovering secrets to winning in business, richer work, and living with a fresh edge. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about that coming out, and
That's cool.
it's obviously from my worldview, which is from a Christian background.
Yeah.
So it's a blend. Well, yeah, it draws on biblical wisdom
Yeah.
as an ancient
That's cool.
source of success.
Awesome.
And, thriving again, more than just the commercial, but the healthy life as well.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. It's a weird thing, right? Like it's like anything. It's like having a huge buffet in front of you. Sometimes if you're not hungry, the nourishment that food provides won't actually make a difference in you. You have to actually be, like I found when I was doing my university degree, it was like, I totally got it because I was running a business at the same time.
Right.
Yes.
Whereas I know that most people, they probably got it on a certain level, but unless you're actually doing it at the same time, it doesn't work. So you have to have that hunger for the knowledge before you get the knowledge.
That's right.
So it's not just about saturation, but I've been listening to a book by Mike McCowitz, I think his name is, called The Pumpkin Plan. Have you heard of that book?
No.
A great author. He's written a few books, but it's kind of what we were talking about before, where you plant a field of pumpkins and you just kill off all the ones that aren't a certain size. Sounds a little bit. The things that do successful, you nourish them and you let them grow, but you let the other ones die. So it's, but it applied to business. It's interesting how you can take these different concepts and unlock a little bit of an edge.
That's
right.
cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, before we finish up, is there any other points that you'd like to make before we finish up?
No, I just think if anybody might be interested, we've got a free ebook available.
Yes, please.
On our website, www.highperformance.kiwi.nz.
Cool.
So they're welcome to go there and download. That's on goal setting.
Awesome. Yep, I think I've read that actually. Yeah, I think I downloaded that a couple of weeks back.
Yes.
So that's cool. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us on today's episode. And if you haven't subscribed to already, make sure that you subscribe to the show. Otherwise, we'll leave it there today. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right.
See
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Bye.